Hello, and welcome to the Line Developer community. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you about Stripe's process and philosophy for publishing world-class documentation that informs and delights our users. My name is Nancy Sweeney, and I'm a technical writer on Stripe's Docs content team. It's my understanding that Stripe and Line have forged a cultural exchange through which we can share ideas that help us both flourish. So it is with great pleasure and some humility that I present a high-level view into Stripe's documentation ecosystem. I believe that Stripe's reputation for excellence in documentation is built upon four key elements. First, our team structure. Next, the ongoing development of and investment in our authoring tools. Third, the process by which we engage with stakeholders from discovery to publication. And finally, our eye toward continuous improvement and innovation in the future. So let's dig into each of these elements to better understand what it is that makes Stripe documentation so special. Our team. For Stripe, the documentation is a product platform in its own right. What does that mean in practical terms? It means that Stripe invests development dollars, not just in the writers who author the content, but also in the developers who build and maintain the authoring environment and publishing infrastructure of the doc site, and in the managers and strategists who oversee the integrity of the site. This trifecta of expertise ensures that the Stripe documentation is always at the forefront of technology, is exceptional in writing quality and content design, and has a consistent flow, tone, style, and navigation that avoids bloat and stagnancy. Stripe's documentation organization is made up of 3 sub-teams who work together to create Stripe's unique and dynamic documentation user experience. The Docs content team works with Stripe's product and engineering teams to design instructional content that helps our users integrate with Stripe products. In addition to coordinating publication of new feature documentation, Docs content also implements documentation improvements based on feedback monitoring, metrics evaluation, technological advances in the authoring tools, security compliance changes, and more. The Docs products team maintains and advances the documentation site's programmatic backend. They are constantly improving on MarkDoc, Stripe's own open source Markdown-based framework, which we'll talk about in more detail later in this presentation. They also incorporate updates to the ever-advancing continuous integration and testing toolset to leverage efficiency, accuracy, and performance in automation testing and deployment. The content strategy team manages the greater ecosystem of Stripe's documentation site, conducting ongoing audits to ensure the quality, integrity, and currency of the content. Does the information architecture still make sense as new features and products are developed and added? Is terminology and conceptual information consistent across multiple product guides? Does our brand message, style, and tone come through? Is it easy for users to find what they're looking for? Analysis from these questions and more help define our roadmap and allow us to invest in larger, high-level improvement projects that keep our docs current and salient, things that often plague software documentation teams whose writers become stretched thin just keeping up with feature development. Each of these teams focuses on different critical functional areas of Stripe's documentation, but we all strive to adhere to the 3 C principles of collaboration, coordination, and communication, because all of our efforts directly impact each other. And the sum of these parts, not the parts themselves, is what sets Stripe's documentation apart. Now that you know how our teams work together to create maintain, and improve Stripe's vast documentation ecosystem. Let's talk about the tools we use to do that. Stripe's documentation is maintained in a GitHub Enterprise repository to facilitate synchronous collaboration among the entire Stripe workforce. Employees throughout Stripe's global footprint are encouraged to submit pull requests to correct inaccuracies or typos, update content within their domains of expertise, and introduce new content through our expanded docs review model, which we'll talk about more when we get to our process. All contributions to the public-facing documentation are subject to strict peer review and a formal editing cycle before being merged into the main branch for deployment. Following merge approval, each PR then undergoes extensive automated testing to ensure it builds cleanly and doesn't break any of our linting rules or contain broken links before it's deployed to our public site. Stripe's documentation repo has more than 1,000 active branches and is redeployed more than 100 times every week. We use Visual Studio Code as our authoring environment because it has an integrated terminal that works seamlessly with Git and GitHub, and because Stripe developed a MarkDoc extension that recognizes the unique formatting tags of MarkDoc and incorporates an integrated peer review that renders them accurate. MarkDoc is Stripe's open source authoring framework. It builds off the simplicity of Markdown, so authored files comply with the MD syntax, but it introduces complex formatting capabilities using code tags backed by Next.js and React. This year, Stripe published the entire MarkDoc repository as open source in order to allow other software companies to leverage its power, standardize the industry, and contribute to MarkDoc's ongoing innovation. Some of the cool capabilities supported in MarkDoc out of the box include complex table formatting that allows column spanning, nested lists, and code blocks in cells without embedded HTML. Conditional content based on variables such as whether users logged in and in what region the user is based. Partial transclusion for easy single source content placement. And custom tag creation support, so you can create your own tags that render content the way you need to. MarkDoc is an incredibly powerful tool that we hope will become the industry standard for enterprise documentation authoring. So please check out markdoc.io to start using it in your own documentation and contribute to it for the betterment of documentation everywhere. Okay, so you've got an idea of the team structure and our tools, and we've come to the real question of the day. How do we do it? How does a team of 20 or so document the products and features implemented by thousands of developers working on the Stripe platform from all over the world? Well, we developed a scalable process where we get involved early in the development cycle so we can plan accordingly. We leverage the expertise of product owners and developers so we can concentrate on what we do best, presenting information in the language and flow and format that is most conducive to learning. Then we measure our success and failure and iterate. That's how we do it. Stripe's expanded docs review model for incorporating feature content is a model that utilizes the core domain expertise of everyone at Stripe, which makes our documentation better and our process more efficient. Many companies view documentation as a handoff in the development lifecycle, reaching out to a tech writer once the feature or product is built so it can then be documented. This approach often doesn't allow enough time for the writer to understand the functionality well enough to comprehensively explain how to integrate with it. It also leads to the writer asking questions about design decisions or UI copy that could have been revised earlier in the process, but would now cause launch delays. it ultimately results in suboptimal documentation for a company's most important audience, its customers. Stripe's documentation team is shifting writer engagement left. We want to be involved at the discovery and design phases of product and feature development. So to ensure that we regularly monitor Stripe's product roadmap and proactively reach out to product teams to begin scoping their documentation requirements at the beginning of their development. Another unique way in which the XDR process approaches documentation is that we collaborate with SMEs to give them more autonomy over the authoring of their own features. 20 or so writers supporting product and feature work developed by thousands of engineers is never going to scale in an embedded writer model. We also recognize that the product owners and engineers are the primary experts on what they're building. Thus, they're in the best position to explain how it works and why it's relevant. After all, they're usually the ones who explain it to us, often in an informal document they've already written. So we get involved early and we work with product owners and developers as the primary authors, so no one's time is wasted playing telephone down the line. Then we dedicate our time to applying our expertise to the project from the beginning. We plan what kind of documentation is needed: a step-by-step guide, code samples, screenshots, a conceptual overview. We provide the outlines and tools, allowing product owners to contribute their expertise directly to our repository. So by the time the PR actually hits our desks, we already know about the feature and how it works. We know when the launch is because it's built into our roadmap. We have very little editing to do because the big pieces were planned early and the flow of the information is in line with our documentation standards. We also know what other docs might be impacted by or should be linked to the new information. This process allows us to effectively utilize the strengths of our under-resourced team and allows everyone to work within their respective spheres of excellence. Stripe collects data related to our users' engagement with our documentation, and we analyze the trends and the feedback we get to inform our development decisions. Hubble is our data metrics reporting tool that provides a robust set of metrics and a standard dashboard of graphical visualizations. The example in this slide shows a breakdown of sources from which the traffic on our site are referred, such as a link in an email or a social media post. But we also track things like page views and average time spent on a page, as well as whether that user went on to make an API call. Hubble also supports custom queries, so you can pull data for whatever metrics are important to you. All of our data documentation pages also include a feedback widget, and we pay special attention to the metrics that engagement from our readers yields. The Hubble dashboard provides a number of key metrics related to whether users click the thumbs up or thumbs down reaction on the page. But in addition to that, we have a Slack integration that posts each and every comment users make on our pages. We review those comments daily, and we even have a custom React emoji that automatically generates a JIRA ticket for any comments that are actionable, whether it's a bug for a broken link or an improvement request to clarify instructions or provide examples. Our metrics are an important measurement of our performance as a team, and we take them very seriously. Stripe isn't content with our reputation for the best documentation in the industry. Rather, we aim to continually raise the bar for the entire industry, including us. It's one of our key principles behind making MarkDoc open source and inviting contribution to its growth and ongoing innovation. Together, we can help make documentation beautiful and purposeful, and we can help millions of software users help themselves. We would love to hear from you if you have any ideas for how we can make Stripe's documentation or MarkDoc even better. So please share your thoughts after the presentation. Thank you for taking the time to learn about Stripe's documentation strategy, process, and goals. There is so much more that I didn't get a chance to cover, but I hope this has given you a little insight into how we think about documentation and Stripe, and why we're excited to collaborate with a company like Line in a thoughtful exchange of ideas and purpose. Thank you again.